For the past few years, I've been all over the place with my setup. A giant 49-inch super ultra-wide and a 27-inch 4K monitor for my work setup, plus a 55-inch OLED TV for console gaming. But honestly, I've always wanted just one single screen that could handle everything. So recently, I made a switch to the Gigabyte M32U. In this video, I'm gonna tell you about the whole journey of switching things up, how I feel about the switch, and whether or not you should consider this monitor for your single monitor setup if that's what you're aiming for. And with that out of the way, let's dive right in. So here's a bit of context about what I was using before I switched to M32U. It's a little bit of information here, so please bear with me, okay? Now, it all began with a 27-inch 5K iMac and a 27-inch 4K monitor for my work setup back in 2016, I believe. It was fine for a few years, but when the iMac wasn't keeping up anymore, I built a custom PC/�𝗂𝗡𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗣 in 2019 as a replacement and got back into PC gaming after more than a decade-long hiatus. I picked up the Samsung CRG9, a massive 49-inch super ultra-wide as my main screen, with a 27-inch 4K as a secondary. All of a sudden, I now had the equivalent of 3 27-inch displays side by side, which was pretty crazy. Now, the setup was perfect for multitasking and immersing myself in games, even though the text on the super ultra-wide wasn't as sharp as I would like due to its 1440p limit, but the massive screen space kind of made it worth a compromise, so I was using it for quite a bit. Then in 2020, I got a PS5 and thought I should upgrade to an OLED display with a high refresh rate, because well, that's what everyone seemed to be doing. So I got a 55-inch LG OLED TV. It was absolutely incredible for gaming, but to be honest, it felt like a bit overkill since I wasn't gaming as much as I'd hoped, with work and life just getting in the way. By 2023, I was ready to simplify my setup. The OLED was cool and everything, but it was time to let it go since I wasn't actually using it to its full potential. And with Stage Manager on macOS, I realized I didn't really need all the extra screen space either. So the super ultra-wide had to go too. And that left me with just the Dell 27-inch 4K monitor with a 60Hz refresh rate. It was adequate, but I found myself wishing it was larger and had a higher refresh rate over and over again, so I casually started looking for an upgrade. Initially, I was eyeing on LG's latest model, 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗣, but it wasn't available here in Malaysia yet. So I reached out to LG Malaysia on Instagram asking when it would be available here, but I got no response. Meanwhile, I kept seeing M32U pop up on my YouTube feed. So after a bit of research, I realized it was pretty much what I was looking for, so I decided to go for it. The M32U's design is pretty simple. It's made of plastic with a mix of glossy and matte finishes. It's not the best looking monitor on the market by any means, but it's far from hideous. You can adjust the height up to 13 centimeters, swivel it from -30 degrees to 30 degrees, and tilt it from -5 degrees to about 20 degrees. It's not rotatable though, so if you're aiming to use it vertically, you're gonna need a monitor arm for that. The monitor stand is a bit bulky for my liking. I mean, it's so bulky that it barely fits on my monitorizer. But looking at other 32-inch monitor models, it seems like a bulky stand is the norm for this size. Matter of fact, getting one of those other monitors would have been worse for my setup. Once it's set up though, adjusting it is a breeze, which is great because I often adjust it when switching between standing and sitting. This monitor can reach up to 144Hz, which is awesome. I'm able to use VR on my Mac, but my PC maxes out at 98Hz due to my graphics card's limitations. With the PS5, I'm able to achieve the glorious 120Hz and 4K, just as expected. Beyond gaming, the high refresh rate is also transformative for daily tasks. Scrolling through text is so much smoother, making reading on this monitor a lot more pleasant. It's hard to convey this through a video. You have to see it for yourself to truly appreciate it. If you're using a phone with a 120Hz screen, you know what I'm talking about. Honestly, I can't imagine going back to 60Hz right now. Alright guys, I was getting some material for this video and I found something pretty interesting. So there's this feature called Type-C compatibility on this monitor, which according to Gigabyte makes it compatible with devices that don't support DSC, which I believe it kind of disables the DSC, but I'm not sure about it. But anyway, when I had this feature turned on earlier, I was able to get 120Hz refresh rate, and when I had it turned off, I was able to get 144 Hz, which is the max refresh rate on this monitor. So if you are using this monitor for your Mac, specifically the USB-C port, and you want to get the max refresh rate, you want to turn this feature off, okay? So you're going to navigate to settings, you go navigate to system, and then other settings, and then you find the Type-C compatibility, you want to set it to off, okay? That's pretty much it. I just want to make this quick video to talk about it, and now let's get back to the video. Straight out of the box, the colors are solid, but there's a warm tint that I'm not a fan of. I'm okay with a bit of warm tint since I usually have True Tone turned on all my Apple devices, but the warm tint in sRGB mode on this monitor is just too much for me. After some digging, I stumbled upon a Reddit thread on manual calibration to kind of remove the warm tint. The idea is to use a device that you trust for color accuracy as a benchmark to adjust the colors on the monitor. I used my 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro as a reference and tweaked the RGB settings to match. I kept True Tone on because I prefer the look it provides, but feel free to turn it off if it's not your thing. I'll drop the link to the Reddit thread below for anyone interested. In HDR mode, this monitor offers about 350 nits of brightness, which is more than enough for me since, as you can probably tell, I don't like my room too bright. During the day, I usually set the brightness between 50 to 60% and dial it down as evening approaches. At night, even 0% feels a little too bright. But thankfully, the Luna app on macOS offers additional dimming options. HDR though is somewhat hit or miss on this monitor. It does enhance the look of some games, but the improvement isn't significant. I only turn it on for games I'm accustomed to playing in HDR. Otherwise, I tend to leave it off since I'm not a fan of the forced max brightness and the HDR quality just doesn't seem worth it to me. It comes with a pair of 3-watt built-in speakers. They're fine for what they are, good enough for a quick call or some background listening.
Shared experiences. Like, you are always so alone in this headset. Like, meaning there are lots of other great super immersive experiences and you can be productive and you can watch a movie, but no matter what's happening, you're always alone, mirroring everything on an iPad or something like that. Now, FaceTime is close, it's one thing, but I'm talking about sharing one virtual space with more than one person, or seeing the same virtual environment at the same time. So in that digital space, you look around and see other people, and I use people with air quotes, but you see them, they see you, and you can see the same environment from different angles at the same time and explore it together. All of the other experiences, it's just you in there, solo. Like, there's nobody else in there. So no matter what you're doing, no matter how immersive the movie is, or no matter how good the game is around you, you're in there by yourself and nobody else can see.
But that's about it. If you're someone like me who listens to music pretty much all the time, you're probably gonna need a pair of external speakers that could, do the job decently well. I use Logitech G560 gaming speakers. Now, they are not the best speakers you can get, and they're probably gonna turn some people off with the RGB lighting, but I've been using them for a few years now and I'm pretty happy with the audio quality and the RGB lighting that they have to offer. The connectivity on this monitor is pretty solid. even if it's not quite perfect for my unique setup. It features two HDMI 2.1 ports, one DisplayPort 1.4, one USB-C, and three USB 3.0 ports. My setup is somewhat unconventional as it needs to accommodate my Mac Studio, my PS5, and PC. The Mac Studio connects flawlessly via USB-C, but keep in mind it only offers 15 watts of power, which might not fully charge a laptop in most cases. The HDMI 2.1 ports are capped at 24 gigabits per second, not reaching the full potential of HDMI 2.1, but they work fine for most needs, thanks to DSC. For PS5 users though, it means you get 4K at 120Hz with 420 subsampling. This reduces color details to maintain a high refresh rate, but during gaming it's unlikely you will notice any difference. At least that's been my experience. For work, especially where color accuracy is essential, I recommend using the DisplayPort to avoid any subsampling issues. The KVM switch is theoretically a great feature but can be a bit finicky. Sometimes it doesn't respond, especially if there's no signal from the other input. Thankfully, there's a quick switch feature that allows easy shortcut access using the joystick. The best part? It's customizable to whatever feature you want, which I absolutely love. And I really enjoy using the joystick to navigate the OSD because it's so much more intuitive than using buttons. I mean, even something simple like switching inputs or adjusting brightness using buttons could sometimes feel pretty clunky. The 3 USB ports on the monitor weren't sufficient for me, so I added an extra KVM switch, let's call it KVM2, to extend my connectivity, ensuring my PS5 also has access to the peripherals. KVM2 has 4 USB ports and a toggle to switch between two inputs. One input connects to the PS5, and the other, rather than going to one of my computers, links directly to the monitor. This setup allows both computers to share it. I connected the USB ports to my speakers, keyboard and mouse dongles, and a dock for my gaming headset. Finally, I connected the monitor to my PC using a USB-A to USB-B cable, in addition to the DisplayPort cable. On KVM2, I set the input 1 to PS5 and input 2 to the computers. When I switch the input on KVM2, it alternates between the computers and the PS5. When it's set to the computers, I can use the monitor's KVM switch to flip between my Mac and PC. And if it's on the PS5, it simply deactivates the peripherals on both computers. I hope this explanation is clear. It's really less complicated than it sounds like. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments section below. I'll try my best to help. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this monitor. I picked it up for 3,170 ringgit, which was around $670, and it feels like a bargain really for what it has to offer. As Nada from Tech Testers put it,
it's a bit hard to summarize this monitor because the test results and the actual experience don't completely add up. If we just look at the pure numbers, this monitor has pretty mid-range results. It doesn't really excel in anything, but it also doesn't perform below expectations. It does exactly what it is supposed to do, and it's not really exciting per se. But on the other hand, when you plug it in, when you start using it, and when you load a game, it just looks and feels really impressive, and it offers a really pleasant overall experience.
And I agree, it might not look impressive on paper, but the real-life experience is completely a different story, especially with text clarity in my use case. That being said, no monitor is perfect. I wish the HDR was better, and I'm not really a big fan of the matte screen coating. I would have preferred a glossy option instead, to be honest. But hey, a monitor that ticks every single box would likely cost a fortune. For now, the M32U checks most of my boxes at a price point that is very hard to beat. Would I recommend it? Absolutely, if it fits your needs and you find a good deal. But if it's still undecided, take some time to look into it further, watch more reviews, or just drop me a question in the comments below. I'll do my best to help. And that, my friend, wraps up this video. If you found it helpful, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.